What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about 4 baits that you're going to need in your tackle box to go out, catch a couple bass in the canal systems right now. The number one bait right now that I'm flipping around doing pretty good with is a paddle tail. Use a 2.8 to a 3.8 inch paddle tail, a black top, green pumpkin top, something that's a little bit darker to add the contrast, but you want a little bit of flash, so make sure that you have a pearl to kind of a pinkish hue bottom, and that will cause the silhouette, which the bass will then see it as like a baby tilapia. The reason why those 2.8 inch paddle tails are doing so good right now is because it is currently the tilapia spawn, and whenever the tilapia are spawning, bluegill are spawning, anything like that, the bass, they are just chewing. Doesn't matter where you're fishing, but especially in the canal systems, they go up in the current areas, they dig their beds, and the bass are not too far behind because the bass, they love chowing down on those little tilapia. So make sure you have a paddle tail with you at all times when you're out at the canal system. You can throw it on a bait caster, you can throw it on a spinning combo. Ultimately, spinning combo, I'd say 8-pound test. Bait caster, anywhere from, I'd say 8 to 12-pound test, just depending on what you prefer in the canal systems. I do recommend to have a medium light spinning rod, if not a medium, and the lightest you should go with a bait caster is a medium, because the canal systems are very steep, and if you do catch a good fish, you want enough backbone to actually be able to pull those fish up onto the bank and, you know, get a picture, do whatever you got to do with them. You don't want them to pop off, because then, hey, it doesn't count. And the second bait of choice, you guys see me fish with these things all the time, and that is a little crappie grub. You can see that that little tiny tickle tail just barely flickers just by barely moving it up and down. So imagine what it would do in the water. It looks super natural, super realistic. The reason why these buggers work so darn well, whether you're using a straight tail or a curly tail, is because of that spawn right now. The tilapia spawning, the bluegill spawning. You use any sort of color that resembles those two fish, and you let this thing sink right below all those fry and just dart it around, or if you have a curly tail, do a super slow retrieval and let the current do all the work. Man, there are going to be bass underneath those fry, and they're going to be chewing. So hold on to your rod. These will catch small fish this time of year. They will catch big fish this time of year. Don't underestimate it just because it's a small bait. Small baits catch big fish, and especially this time of year, because every single bass is chewing. They're trying to chow down. They're trying to fatten back up for the summer months, those grueling months that they really struggle. And this is the time of year to use small baits and yet still catch good sized fish. It's definitely the best time of year for me personally. The third bait of choice, you guys are going to notice kind of a little bit of a trend. These are mostly going to be moving baits, and that is because they're chasing all the tilapia fry, all the bluegill fry, all the bass fry now. They're just moving around. They're, like I said, trying to fatten up before summer, and these fish, they are freaking brutes right now. That post spawn, they're feisty as all heck. But the third bait of choice, nonetheless, is a little meth spinner. Me personally, currently, I really like using the gold blade, because a lot of the canal systems are actually relatively dirty right now. We have a lot of water pushing through it, so with all of that silt being churned up and kicking around, you see a lot of muddy, mucky water, and that gold blade is going to be kicking up enough water disturbance, but it's also going to flash a little bit better in that dirty water. Once the water starts to clear up, you can switch to the nickel, you can switch to, you could keep the gold, you could try green, you could try yellow, you could try a straight white. Cloudy days, a white blade works really, really well. Don't do too well with the white blades when it's sunny out, but if it's cloudy like it is right now outside, a white blade will do really well for you. But for the most part, I have been using the gold blade and doing pretty freaking well on it. And the last bait of choice, honestly one of my favorites, obviously it's a staple in the bass industry, and that is a little Texas rig. Super finesse, 3/16 ounce tungsten weight with a size 2 to size 3 EWG hook, and these things are freaking phenomenal. Little Beastie Bug Junior 2.8 inch by Fat Pack Baits right here. Phenomenal, phenomenal bait. The great thing with these is that you can flip it by any sort of ladder, any sort of staircase, any sort of broken concrete, overhanging tree, any sort of grocery cart, Christmas tree. All the structure that's in the canals, you can flip that right in there, and the great thing is because it's weedless, those bass are going to be hiding up in all those areas because that water is heating up. And the great thing is you can allow that bait to fall in there, and you can work the bait a little bit longer, especially if you're out fishing in the middle of the day. If you're fishing morning to evening, you are going to notice that the moving baits are going to be working a little bit better. Those bass, they're going to be out, they're going to be chasing bait a little bit more. But as the day progresses, the sun gets a little higher in the sky, they're going to find areas that they feel protected, but yet to where they can still ambush some bait. So if there's like a broken concrete slab that's hanging in the water, you could flip that little Texas rig in there, give it a quick little dangle, and really leave it there, leave it in front of their face, make them mad, essentially piss them off, and they're going to grab it, they're going to hit it. Now you can always throw a paddle tail, a crappie grub, a mep spinner, rooster tail, whatever you want, and you can cast it down the canal, work the current back, and run it by a broken slab of concrete. And yes, you're gonna have bass come out and absolutely devour a little paddle tail, crappie grub, etc. But ultimately, if you're fishing midday, you want to try to slow down that presentation, because that water is probably about 80 degrees right now. It is very, very warm in the valley. They're just concrete holes. Those fish, they're trying to find any area where they can cool off a little bit and chill out until it's feeding time, essentially. So make sure you have a little Texas rig on. You can also go with a weedless Ned rig, just something with a finesse profile, and you will go out there, you will slay fish. I'm gonna run through these one more time just to go over them real quick. Make sure you have a 2.8 to 3.8 inch paddle tail. Cast it all the way down the canal. Run it along any sort of concrete, broken slabs. Skip these underneath bridges. That's a great thing about these. They skip phenomenally under any sort of bridge. You can flip it up in current. You can let the current do the work, and a lot of times you don't even have to retrieve it, because this thing is just fluttering down in the water column looking like a dying or struggling bait fish, and those bass just see this thing being pulled by the current and they just come up and they snatch it. So great bait right there. Number two, obviously crappie grub. You're going to work it the same way essentially as a paddle tail. You're going to fish around the same areas, bridge pilings, any sort of shade, overhangs, broken concrete. Flip these suckers up in the current. I am telling you, throw this in any sort of current. You are going to catch fish, whether it's a bass, crappie, bluegill, red ear, you know, whatever. Anything eats a crappie grub, and that's why I love fishing them so much, because you never know what you're going to catch. So hold on to the rod and have fun. The third bait of choice, if you want to get a very, very aggressive thump of a bite, cast these things, run it obviously along with the current, the way that the current's running. Don't cast the opposite way and work it against the current, otherwise it's going to stay higher in the water column and you're probably not going to catch as many fish. You want to make sure that all these baits, you keep it in the strike zone as long as possible. So work with the current. Allow the current to essentially make your bait look as realistic as possible. But same thing, fish this around any sort of pillar. Be a little bit careful if you're fishing around wood or any sort of overhangs, because that little treble obviously gets caught up in that kind of stuff fairly easily. But as long as you're careful with it, you can fish it around pretty much any sort of cover. And last but not least, probably the most versatile, useful bass technique ever, that little Texas rig. Make sure you have green pumpkin, black flake. It works in any sort of water clarity. Doesn't matter if it's clear or if it's murky. It's gonna pop, it's gonna show. And the great thing is these little pinchers on the Beastie Bug Jr., they kick up a lot of water disturbance. Therefore, it's gonna draw in any sort of bass, even if they can't see it very well. They're gonna feel that vibration because of their lateral line, and they're gonna go after it, and they're going to hit it. And that is it. I hope that these 4 techniques, 4 baits, whatever you want to call them, I hope that they help you guys. I hope you guys go out, use at least one of them, give it a shot, and just absolutely slay the fish. Like I said, currently the tilapia, they are spawning, bluegills are spawning. You'll see their beds around. If you see any sort of fry, flip around the fry, because more often than not, if it's bass fry, there's going to be a male guarding it still. But if it's tilapia fry, bluegill fries, any other fry, cast, let it sink below it, and run it through them really slowly, and I guarantee you're probably going to get bit. Currently what I'm noticing in the canal systems, there's a lot of bass on any sort of broken concrete, and there's a lot of bass hanging out on the staircases. Not so much the ladders, but if you fish a canal that has staircases, fish those staircases, fish them slow, fish them hard, take your time, and you're gonna pull a couple fish out. Obviously, there's so many other tactics. I mean, you could throw a spinner bait instead of an inline spinner. You could throw a Ned rig, you could throw a drop shot. There's many other facets that you could throw, but these are the ones that have been working the best for me currently. So I hope you guys take my advice, use at least one of these techniques, get out there, whack a couple fish for yourself. I appreciate you guys so very much, and shoot, we'll see you guys next time on Southwest Fishing.